Welcome to the Especially for Athletes podcast, where we explore essential principles that empower athletes to learn life's most valuable lessons through sports.
All right, Dustin, today we're going to talk about a really important concept that we preach over and over again: compete without contempt. But there are times where that principle is way harder to live than at other times. And so I don't know how many people saw this on TV, social media, whatever this week. But last week, rivals Arizona and Arizona State played. It was a heated game. They're heated rivals. And Coach Bobby Hurley, the coach of Arizona State, refused to shake hands with the University of Arizona after, and kind of waved off the coach. The coach was like, even me? You know, he understood it was a heated match, and he was like, even me? You know, and he said, yeah, waved him off, and then went into the post-game press conference. And I want to play what he said in the post-game press conference and then get your thoughts on it. Sound good?
Yeah.
I mean, it was, if you were right near our bench, it was relentless, constant chatter, you know, from a couple of the Arizona players that was not being policed properly. And of course, they're going to be happy with winning, but it was done with no class, in my opinion. And words that were said back and forth led, you know, to the moment where Freeman, you know, lost it and lost his cool because of the constant talk that was allowed to go on. So, you know, I had to make a tough decision to obviously, in the best interest of our team, to get them into the locker room so there'd be no further incidents the rest of the game. I can tell you this: I do get a vote for all conference, and I can tell you who's not getting a vote.
Wow!
So ended it off there with a little exclamation point.
That's up until that point, he didn't need to do that, but whatever.
Yeah. So here's the question. I was very careful in the way I crafted this question. Ready? And I would love your thoughts as a longtime coach on this.
Yeah, you know that my answer may not fit with our chapter in our book here. I'm gonna try to fire it away. Let's go.
Well, and that's why I wanted to do this podcast. Is sometimes it's easy to sit in studios, to record a podcast, to teach these things. And then there's these moments, right, where these things happen, this constant, relentless chatter. Yeah. And another team just shoving a loss down your throat, trying to embarrass you, trying to do all those things. And that's when it's really hard, right? And so here's the question. What do you do when the team you are playing is talking crap with relentless, constant, and classless chatter, being jerks, talking to your sideline? What does compete without contempt look like in that situation?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I think during the game, you know, what it means is you don't have to feed into that. You know, you still do. You don't have to, you don't have to match it by lowering yourself to that. You just play ball. You know, you try to win the game and let that be, you know, the ultimate trash talk. You know, so that's what I would say during the game. A little bit of trash back and forth. I don't even think that's necessarily bad sportsmanship. I mean, I know others would disagree with that, but when you're in the heat of the moment, your adrenaline's going and you got a bunch of competitive dudes out there, stuff's going to be said. And I don't think, you know, if your feelings get hurt, then you shouldn't be playing. But when it's relentless and it's constant and it's to the sidelines, you know, it can be hard. Where it's really hard is after the game. And that's where, you know, you do have to do what he did there. Because everybody's watching, right? What's going to happen at the end of that game is everybody's eyes are going to go to what does the post-game handshake look like? And so you have this sort of traditional, all right, we're supposed to go shake hands like that. It's just, and we're supposed to, in the process, if we don't, we're bad sports. But going through the line, just because I'm shaking your hand doesn't mean if people were there, they're not looking at each other, not smiling at each other. It's not a, hey man, thanks so much. Great game. Good luck the rest of the season. When in those moments, it's just, we're doing it because we have to do it. And that's where I'm like, why? at that point. Like all it takes is it's a tinderbox, like ready to explode, right? One person says anything, and it's boom, you're going to have a fight. And you're going to have stuff said and things done that can ruin a kid, can ruin a team. You know, who knows what can happen. And everybody's recording it, and people want to see it happen, right? They want to see it. There be a dust up after. In those moments, I would prefer that you just go back to your locker rooms. And even the coaches, you can go out and shake hands, but sometimes there's stuff going on with coaching staffs. And that's usually in the community and in the, stuff that's the part that's the more frustrating thing to me is when you have adults who are, they're making it a much bigger deal. Their personal egos are getting in the way. The kids are trying to play a game. Usually the kids they can handle the smack talk for the most part, but you get coaching staffs that, have to flex and say stuff and do things. And that's where, I would prefer, look, I'll shake your hand, but I don't have to do it here in public for everybody to just see that I'm a good sport. Can we just go to our locker rooms? I'll text you, I'll call you, I'll meet you out by the bus or something. And hey, thanks, great game. When everyone's kind of calmed down a little bit. If a coach did that to me, I wouldn't, as long as, I get it. Like I would be okay with it, but, and I think he could have handled that a little bit better, and he probably should have just gone and shake the coach's hand. But how many times have you seen that? And the coach shakes his hand, but doesn't look at the other coach, or it's really quick and everybody focuses on, look what a poor sport he is. Well, he was shaking his hand. Yeah. He just didn't smile and give him a hug and tell him, congratulations for beating us, rubbing it in our face, using poor sportsmanship, maybe cheating, all the other stuff that we think you did. So I'm going to, that to me it's just hard to ask people to do that. But the truth is, that's what we expect of our teams. And so I guess sometimes you have to tuck your tail and just do it.
Yeah. Well, here's a few thoughts. Like a couple of things that he said there really seemed to annoy Coach Hurley, right? One was he said that there was this relentless, constant, classless chatter that was never checked. So he did seem to be, sometimes young people are going to be young people. It's a rivalry, He seemed frustrated with the fact that the Arizona coach didn't bring his team in and be like, hey, stop the chatter. You don't need to talk to the bench. Stop it. You win. Let your game talk, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, so there's the other side of the coin, right? When you're a coach and you see your team doing that, have you ever been in that situation? And if so, what do you do as a coach
like I said, sometimes guys, when there's some back and forth and it's going on both ways, I'm almost in those situations too. I say, hey, just play ball, right? Like, stop it. If it's ever like something really, over the top, for sure, I'm all over the kid. And I know a lot of coaches that are. I know other coaches, I've played against some recently, who could care less as long as the ref didn't see it, because they feel like it gives their guys some sort of mental edge, or it gives them some sort of mental edge. And especially in the more physical sports. And maybe it does, whatever. I just think it's childish, but I get it. Like I've been that way too. And so I can't, I don't want to sound hypocritical here and say absolutely every time you should never say anything it happens. It's after the game, before the game and after the game stuff to me, that's more the problem. That during the game, things happen, emotions happen. I think most of the time coaches don't like it and they can get together and, hey, I apologize. And most of the time you understand that you can't be responsible. You have to, you're the head coach, but it's not fair to make the head coach responsible for everything that his kids do or say, on the field, off the field, on the court, off the court. It's the relentless stuff. The unchecked part to me, though, when he said that, I actually didn't think about his coach. I thought about the refs. They really can control the tone of the game. They're the ones, in my opinion, that should be saying, hey, stop. You bring the coaches together and you start warning them. And I've had this happen. Hey, go back to your team. If this continues, I'm going to start throwing guys out of games, right? Then you go back to your team and you say, hey, shut your mouth, right? Like someone's going to get thrown out. We're going to have a penalty assessed, something going to cost us the game. Be quiet. Yeah. But if the refs are letting it go and you're winning and your guys are in a groove, I can see why that coach was probably like, hey, man, it's a rivalry game. I'm going to, and if maybe he didn't see it or maybe he didn't quite understand, I don't know.
Yeah, and especially in football. I mean, how can you know everything that's being said in pilots and everything like that? Yeah. So I just thought that's important. If you ever see it as a coach or a parent, if I saw my kid doing that in a game or something like that, that car ride home, we've talked about how sacred that is. Yeah. Might be good to say, hey, you don't need to do that. I was thinking about this. Shut them up with your play.
Yeah.
And if you can't shut them up with your play, then, I love what Tiger Woods says, don't get bitter, get better.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you don't want them to talk. It's really easy. Or if you want to make them look stupid as they talk, beat them. Yeah. And if you can't, don't pout, don't make some huge statement and act like everyone on the other side is a villain and that your kids were just a bunch of angels walking around just wanting to serve and do good. That's Arizona State didn't say anything, right?
And Bobby Hurley, that kid, I mean, he talked plenty, when he played, and he's coached competitive, and he's that way too. So, but with that said, we don't know, we weren't there to really know how bad it got, how over the line maybe it went. And it could have been that he's just extra sensitive because of the loss and his guys overreacting. But it could have been that it got to the point where it was sort of, come on, this is enough. And he doesn't know. Sometimes, it's hard as a competitor to not want your kids to take matters into their own hands. They can't, but there's a part of you that, you're fighting that because you don't like it, and it's just human behavior. But
which is what happened, right? I mean, the whole precipitous of this was the Arizona State guy headbutted an Arizona guy, and so they didn't want there to be a fight after the game. Yeah. Like I get Coach Hurley. Yeah. The reason why I wanted to have this discussion is just, man, this is real, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's kids out there, fans are dressing up, making signs about them, mocking them at the free throw line, and all. And when that stuff starts welling up, that's when all the bad stuff starts to happen before the game, after the game, sometimes even during the game. And so thinking through, like, okay, when there is this, to go back to the quote, relentless, constant, classless chatter, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to compete without contempt? Right.
I think for the coach, I think, and I've seen this before, and I actually had it happen once, me in a situation I was in as a coach, but and you see coaches do this all the time. They just say, I'm not going to talk about it. No comment. Some stuff happened. I didn't appreciate it. I don't need to air it out on because then it becomes a topic, right? And it gets discussed. We're talking about it because all he had to say was, I'm not going to address that. I'm going to talk to their coach, or we talked right after in the tunnel, right after the game. I went over and explained to him why we didn't do it, what I thought happened. He gave his opinion. We disagree, or you know what? He didn't know what was going on. He apologized. It happens. I'm not going to go into more detail like that. If that discussion had happened before the interview, but when you come into an interview hot like that and you haven't made up with the other coach and you let yourself spew some of the things that he said, you're just opening it up again. Right. And so I think he should have kind of tried to bury that a little bit and told the reporters, I'll be in a minute, because he knew they were going to ask him that question. Yeah. Right. Rather than come in there hot. And as soon as he had his chance, he couldn't help himself, but probably just throw more gas on the fire. So, But as players, sometimes you're not, we know this is, like you said, it's real. Let's stop being, over righteous here. We all have moments where we know I'm at my breaking point right now. I'm hot. My adrenaline's pumping. I'm not in a good position right now. The best thing to do, what would we tell somebody in real life? Step away, right? Walk away. That's what we would tell somebody. Because if you don't, you're going to fight somebody. Walk away, go get your, take a deep breath, go sit down for a minute. So in that point, look, why do they have to shake hands? what does that really show, right? Like, it's just this tradition, but so what? If you didn't shake hands, what's the big deal? The kids don't like each other. It was an ugly game. Don't shake hands. Coaches, figure it out, talk about it, respect each other, show some class there, some leadership. But I don't care if kids shake hands all the time. Sometimes it's probably better they don't, because you don't want something bad to happen, and you know your kids are ready to, and all it takes is one of them to snap. And now you kind of, I got to protect my teammate. And then who knows what happens? It gets out of control.
Yep, exactly. The one little exclamation point that I was kind of like, all right, is when he's like, I have an all conference vote and I know who's not getting it. Right. Yeah. And kind of those little digs, I would have loved to see a coach come in and say something like you said, like, look, I'm grateful for the other coach. I wish he would have addressed things a little bit more. I'll talk to him. I'm sure we're going to be fine. I just didn't want there to be an incident. And we want to be good sports. We want to play the right way. We wish some things would have been addressed that were not, but I'll talk to that coach about it.
Yeah. I don't want to talk anymore about it. Let's talk about the game. They beat us. We got to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd like that. To sum up my feelings on it, I would just go with Tiger Woods. Don't get bitter. Get better. That's within your control. If you win, what do they have to say? So just get better. Win next time. Let them talk. They'll feel even stupider when they lose. Right.
I agree. I don't have anything else to say. You'll be in sports long enough. You'll be on both sides of this at some point. And I think when you understand that, the best thing to do is just take your licking. The sun will come up tomorrow and get back to practice. Figure it out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So athletes, eyes up, do the work, compete without contempt, even when it's super hard. And sometimes it's going to be super hard. So
awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Shad.
Thank you for joining the Especially for Athletes podcast. To learn more about Especially for Athletes organization, get a copy of our book, The Sportlight, or to bring our program to your team, school, business, or organization, visit us at especiallyforathletes.org.